Are you the parent of a child with special needs, or do you know someone who is? This episode might be for you. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Personal Finance Friday, where we're talking about special needs trusts. All parents worry about their children's futures, whether they'll grow up to be productive members of society, possibly even have a family of their own someday. For a certain subset of parents, however, this normal concern about their children's futures is distorted because they already know that their child may not have those same options because that child has some level of special needs. If that child is dependent upon their parents for their care physically, mentally, fiscally, or some combination of all three, then those parents have a larger weight on their shoulders than most. Assuming that the child is likely to outlive their parents, or at least outlive their parents' ability to care for them, at least certainly physically, how do they go about handling that? If the parents are wealthy, this may not be a huge concern, but the rest of us may need help from third parties and government programs, and that's where some serious advanced planning is required. If the parents have some assets that they want used for their child's care, but still need to be able to take advantage of programs like SSI and Medicaid, then what they might need is called a special needs trust. A special needs trust is a trust much like any other, with a few special provisions in law that allow it to be specially used for the care of a special needs child. The trust can be created in advance, or as part of the will when the parents pass. It's generally a better idea, however, to create it in advance so that you can get all the parameters set up correctly, and then pour assets into the trust at the time the parents pass. Or depending, if they have the assets to go ahead and do it, they can do it while they're alive. Now, of course, to do this, you'll want to work with an estate planning attorney in your local area, preferably one that has expertise in special needs trusts and Medicaid and Social Security, because you need to get this done correctly. Now, don't mess around with online tools or anything like that. Rules for special needs trusts and how it interacts with Medicaid programs vary state to state. So you want an estate planning attorney that has that expertise in the local area where the trust will be used, where the child will be living. Now remember, if it isn't done right the first time, if you don't get that estate planning attorney involved that has that expertise, you won't get a shot at fixing it later when you've passed. Do it right the first time. So we've sort of mentioned a few things as to why you would want a special needs trust, but let's hit a few of them specifically. First up is eligibility. The special needs trusts can keep the child eligible for programs like SSI and Medicaid to be able to take advantage of those programs and still use the trust funds to pay for additional care over and above what those programs provide. Next is certainty. The trust ensures that the assets within it are used only for the child's care, as opposed to anything else. This can be especially comforting for the parents if they have a child that can easily be taken advantage of or manipulated to use funds for something else if the funds weren't inside the trust. Lastly is protection. The funds inside the trust can only be used for the care of the child. They're not generally available to pay creditors off or judgments of any kind whatsoever. The funds can only be used for the care of the beneficiary. Now, let's not kid ourselves. With anything like this, there's going to be downsides, so let's talk about a few of those. First up is cost. Setting up the trust itself and then paying a third-party trustee to administer it is not free. The estate attorney is going to charge you to create all the documents, file it and execute it and everything else like that. You may pay some fees transferring certain assets into that trust. And of course, the fee for the trustee is going on an annual basis. Next is resentment. Now, this is the most unfortunate version of a downside for the special needs trust. But if the child is mentally capable of understanding their situation, but not of running their own affairs, the creation of the special needs trust can cause resentment with that child and actually decrease their level of independence. Remember, the trustee has all the power in this relationship. They will only disperse funds from the trust based on the terms and conditions you created. Just because the trustee requested money from the trust doesn't mean they'll actually get it. Next up, Medicaid repayment. If your child takes advantage of some of those third-party programs, like Medicaid and SSI, certain states have clauses to where they can reclaim some of the funds for the care they provided from the trust. Whatever's left in that trust when the child finally passes, they can reclaim those funds to cover their expenses. Lastly is the trustee. You have to be careful about who you choose as a trustee. When dealing with a special needs trust and a special needs child, I highly recommend you go with a professional trustee, a lawyer that does this sort of thing on a fee basis, or a bank trust department. Why? With the trust, there are ongoing accounting and tax concerns. All this money has to be accounted for and reported to be kept track of to make sure the trustee is doing their job accurately, and they have to file tax returns on your child's behalf. So you're better off getting a professional trustee to do this, and remember that's not free. Now I do recommend that you get a family member, if there is a brother or sister or aunt or uncle, who can be a co-trustee to work with the professional trustee, someone who knows the child and knows their needs, who can advocate on their behalf if that's necessary. Providing for the future of a special needs child is a daunting task, no doubt. Handle it professionally, get that third-party professional trustee to do it, and get it taken care of in advance. Remember, you only get one shot at this. You can't make changes after you've passed, so do it right the first time. Thanks for tuning in to Personal Finance Friday this week. Give us a like and a share if you would. Subscribe to the channel if you'd like updates for future episodes. Have a great weekend, everybody.